and at dawn her mother was pregnant. No, more than pregnant. Her mother was having a baby, and as Buttercup stood there in the corner of the room, she watched herself being born, and her father gasped at her beauty, and so did her mother, and the midwife was the first to show concern. The midwife was a sweet woman, known throughout the village for her love of babies, and she said, "Look, trouble." And the father said, "What trouble? Where before did you ever see such beauty?" And the midwife said, "Don't you understand why she was given such beauty? It's because she has no heart. Here, listen, the baby is alive, but there is no beat." And she held Buttercup's chest against the father's ear, and the father could only nod and say, "We must find a miracle man to place a heart inside." But the midwife said, "That would be wrong, I think. I've heard before of creatures like this, the heartless ones, and as they grow bigger they get more and more beautiful, and behind them is nothing but broken bodies and shattered souls. And these without hearts are anguish bringers. And my advice would be, since you're both still young, to have another child, a different child, and be rid of this one now, but, of course, the final decision is up to you." And the father said to the mother, "Well?" And the mother said, "Since the midwife is the kindest person in the village, she must know a monster when she sees one. Let's get to it." So Buttercup's father and Buttercup's mother put their hands to the baby's throat, and the baby began to gasp. Even when Buttercup was awake again, at dawn, with 57 days to go till her marriage, she could not stop gasping. You can't put stuff like that in a movie. Not, at least not in one for kids. Whew. Just darkness. In a movie, I wonder if that would cause too much muddling of the plot, especially in a time of far innocent princesses in towers needing rescue. Yeah. I would love to see like a version of the movie where there is a little bit more of Buttercup's like anticipation, or like a little bit of her character growth, humanity, to be honest. Yeah, it's like, because they just sort of skip a lot of her, and they just skip straight to like the very end. She's this damsel in distress and he has to rescue her. um it would make her a little bit more three-dimensional if we could spend more time with her and like understand her feelings about the whole situation. But if her feelings about it are this dark, it's hard to like show that and still have like a lighthearted movie. Because this is almost like a, in some ways, like, because it's all about nightmares. I feel like in some ways there are elements that could make it into a horror movie, because it's almost like the psychological torture that she goes through is hard. But I mean, that's also kind of in balance to the physical torture that Wesley is about to go through. Regret. Yeah. Um, she's experiencing regret. She's experiencing dread of, um, like, what is her life going to be like after her marriage? Um, Loss and grief about Wesley. Um, like, she can kind of console herself with the idea she abandoned him. Yeah, she had, in her mind anyway, she had a good reason, but it seems like her mind is like shooting that reason down. um she made a choice in the moment, and then her mind is like, that was the wrong choice, you did it wrong. Even though you had valid reasons, um it's still turning out to be like not what her would it be soul, I guess soul is really what wanting. She could not stop gasping. From then on, the nightmares became simply too frightening. When there were 50 days to go, Buttercup knocked one night on the door to Prince Humperdinck's chambers. She entered when he bid her to. "I see trouble," he said. "You look very ill." And so she did. Beautiful, of course, still that, but in no way well. Buttercup did not see quite how to begin. He ushered her into a chair. He got her water. She sipped at it, staring dead ahead. He put the glass to one side. "At your convenience, Princess," he said. "It comes to this," Buttercup began. "In the fire swamp, I made the worst mistake in all the world. I love Wesley. I always have. It seems I always will. I did not know this when you came to me. Please believe what I am about to say. When you said that I must marry you or face death, I answered, 'Kill me.' I meant that. I mean this now, too. If you say I must marry you in 50 days, I will be dead by morning." The prince was literally stunned. After a long moment, he knelt by Buttercup's chair and, in his gentlest voice, started to speak. "I admit that when we first became engaged, there was to be no love involved. That was as much my choice as yours, though the notion may have come from you. But surely you must have noticed in this last month of parties and festivities a certain warming of my attitude?" "I have. You have been both sweet and noble." "Thank you. Having said that, I hope you appreciate how difficult this next sentence is for me to say. I would die myself rather than cause you unhappiness by standing in the way of your marrying the man you love." Buttercup wanted almost to weep with gratitude. She said, "I will bless you all of my days for your kindness." Then she stood. "So it's settled. Our wedding is off." He stood too. "Except for, perhaps, one thing." "That being?" "Have you considered the possibility that he might not now want any longer to marry you?" Until that moment she had not. You were, I hate to remind you, not altogether gentle with his emotions in the fire swamp. Forgive me for saying that, beloved, but you did leave him in the lurch, in a manner of speaking. Buttercup sat down hard. Her turn now to be stunned. Humperdinck knelt again beside her. "This Wesley of yours, this sailor boy, he has pride?" Buttercup managed to whisper, "More than any man alive, I sometimes think." "Well, consider then, dearest. Here he is, off sailing somewhere with the dread pirate Roberts. He has had a month to survive the emotional scars you dealt him. What if he wants now to remain single? Or worse, what if he has found another?" Buttercup was now even beyond whispering. "I think, sweetest child, that we should strike a bargain, you and I. If Wesley wants to marry you still, bless you both. If, for reasons unpleasant to mention, his pride will not let him, then you will marry me, as planned, and be the Queen of Florin." "He couldn't be married, I'm sure. Not my Wesley." She looked at the prince. "But how can I find out?" "What about this? You write him a letter telling him everything. We'll make 4 copies. I'll take my 4 fastest ships and order them off in all directions. The dread pirate Roberts is not often more than a month's sail from Florin. Whichever of my ships finds him will run the white flag of truce. Deliver your letter, and Wesley can decide. If no, he can speak that message to my captain. If yes, my captain will sail him here to you, and I will have to content myself somehow with a lesser bride." I'm not sure, but I definitely think that this is the most generous decision I have yet heard. Do me this favor, then, in return. Until we know Wesley's intentions, one way or another, let us continue as we have, so the festivities will not be halted. And if I seem too fond of you, remember that I cannot help myself." "Agreed," Buttercup said, going to the door, but not before she kissed his cheek. He followed her. "Off with you now, and write your letter." And he returned the kiss, smiling with his eyes at her until the corridor curved her from his sight. There was no doubt whatsoever in his mind that he was going to seem too fond of her in the days ahead. Because when she died of murder on their wedding night, it was crucial that all Florin realized the depth of his love, the epical size of his loss. Since then, no one would dare hesitate to follow him in the revenge war he was to launch against Gilder. At first, when he hired the Sicilian, he was convinced it was best that someone else do her in, all the while making it appear the work of soldiers from Gilder. And when the man in black had somehow materialized to spoil his plans, the prince came close to going insane with rage. But now his basically optimistic nature had reasserted itself. Everything always worked out for the best. The people were infatuated with Buttercup now, as they had never been before her kidnapping. And when he announced from his castle at the balcony that she had been murdered, he already saw the scene in his mind. He would arrive just too late to save her from strangling, but soon enough to see the Gildarian soldiers leaping from the window of his bedroom to the soft ground below. When he made that speech to the masses on the 500th anniversary of his country, well, there wouldn't be a dry eye in the square. And although he was just the least bit perturbed, since he had never actually killed a woman before with his bare hands, there was a first time for everything. Besides, if you wanted something done right, you did it yourself. I knew that he was faking his feelings for her, but I was kind of like, I wanted to go along with it. I wanted it to be true. And that's just cold. The way that just turns immediately. I don't remember. In the movie, was it still the prince that had this whole plot, or was it someone else that was behind it? Because I knew that it was a plot, but I didn't. It was the prince. I felt like the prince in the movie was like not really smart enough. Like, yeah, he was an accomplished hunter, but he was, I don't know, the count was encouraging him, but it was the prince. Okay. So that's probably the same for the book. I don't know, he came across as like this dopey, like yeah, he's a good hunter, but in all other things he's like can't run a country. But this is conniving enough that it's like, yeah, he's not like, yeah, he's trying to like pick up on like tax and foreign relations and all that stuff. The book totally makes him out to be much more calculating than the movie. Yeah, okay. So that is sort of the way I was remembering the movie, is that he was just sort of like just like a dopey, goofy kind of person. But he's like very cold-blooded in this. Hi there. Thanks for joining our book club. If you'd like to join the conversation, I would love it if you would leave us a comment. And if you'd like to see more, check out the playlist.